Don't put your yield at risk. Put your trust in proven solutions. Anvil Nitrogen Stabilizer, Super U Premium Fertilizer, and Tribune Nitrogen Stabilizer from Koch Agronomic Services. These products offer higher active ingredient concentrations imitator brands can't match. See the difference at defendyourn.ca.
I'm Shaun Haney, and this is RealAg on the Weekend. Let's get real and get connected with the week that was in Canadian agriculture. RealAg on the Weekend starts now. Welcome to RealAg on the Weekend. It's your host, Shaun Haney of RealAgriculture.com, and it's great to be here with everybody this afternoon, and hope you're having yourself a great weekend. It is great to be with you, and spring is in the air. That's right. I would say this is maybe the first week where it really feels like spring. Farmers are about to get out there, get some work done, put some seed in the ground. We're itching. You're going to hear a lot of farmers talking about how they're getting itchy, they're ready to scratch the soil, so to speak. And of course, for a lot of the ranchers out there, they are some are probably done calving or into the very full swing of it indeed. Today on the program here on RealAg on the Weekend, we're going to break down some of the party platforms. We're going to look at the conservative ag platform and the liberal ag platform. Are there differences? Where are the differences? Where are the similarities? Kelvin Hepner of RealAgriculture.com wrote a great piece breaking that down. So we'll look at that. We've also got Steve Larocque, farmer from Alberta. He's also chair of Nuffield Canada. Their intake window's open. And what is Nuffield Canada? Well, we'll get to that and why. Maybe if you're curious and you like world travel, you have an interest in agriculture, you're a participant in agriculture, then being a Nuffield scholar may be the right fit for you. So we will talk to Steve about that. We got a product spotlight today with Chris Iverson of FCL. And then we're also going to talk to Elaine Froese. She was a guest of mine. One of the podcasts I host at RealAgriculture.com is called Mind Your Farm Business. And Elaine and I talked about farm transitions. She's a great farm transition expert. She consults farm families across Canada and the United States. And she's a great lady. Love chatting with her. So caring, compassionate is how I would describe her. We're going to talk about from stuck to started on farm succession. So looking forward to that. If you have any feedback today on RealAg on the Weekend, you can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also call the RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. So there's a story on RealAgriculture.com entitled Red Tape Reduction, Tax Cuts, and New Trade Deals, comparing the conservative and liberal platforms. You can check it out if you are interested. It was written by Kelvin Hepner, one of our field editors. He is out of Altona, Manitoba. Kelvin writes, the two front runners vying to form the next government of Canada have both published their party's election platforms as of Tuesday. When it comes to agriculture and farming-related commitments, there are some common themes in both documents from both Mark Carney's Liberals and Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives. And of course, hey everybody, remember to vote. The election is this coming Monday. So at a high level, both parties are pledging to reduce government red tape and to simplify approvals. They're going to enable more in-provincial trade, to invest in export infrastructure, to pursue new trade deals, to cancel consumer carbon tax and the proposed capital gains tax increase, and to simplify the federal tax code. Both sides are also talking about making changes to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency and Pest Management Regulatory Agency as well. In some cases, such as the consumer carbon tax and cutting red tape, the Liberals under Carney have clearly moved their position closer to where the Conservatives have sat for a very long time. But there are still some clear distinctions between the two parties, especially when it comes to the role of government on climate policy. For example, the Liberals are committed to the industrial carbon tax and developing carbon border tariffs. This is my personal opinion. I've got a lot of concern about carbon border tariffs. We can talk about that maybe in the coming weeks. The Liberal Canada Strong platform released last week contained more detail than the Conservatives about the party's agriculture-specific plans, as the Carney-led party made promises to enhance agri-stability, to protect Canada's commitment to supply management, and to spend $200 million on domestic food processing upgrades, among other measures. The Conservative Change platform, released by Poilievre's team on Tuesday, did not refer to many of the ag policy commitments that have been mentioned by Shadow Ag Minister John Barlow and other Conservative MPs in speeches and interviews over the past few months, including commitments to reform the CFIA and PMRA and to make extended rail interswitching measures permanent. One new commitment in the platform was a pledge to pass a Farmland Protection Act to stop foreign governments and corporations from buying Canadian farmland and to report on how much farmland is owned by foreigners. There was no mention of supply management or changes to farm business risk management programs. I think Kelvin's done a very good job there of outlining what some of those changes are. Well, I hosted the Canadian Federation of Agriculture Ag Leaders Debate. It was last Thursday. And we talked about this a little bit from the supply management standpoint. Both parties are saying, hey, we're going to protect supply management. But the trouble is that doesn't necessarily make anybody happy. If you're against supply management, you think, what the heck? Why are we protecting dairy farmers? And if you're pro-supply management, you're like, well, protecting is kind of a bit of a veil because you keep on saying you're protecting, but the Canadian government, conservative and liberals in the past, have just continued to give away market share to foreign countries in free trade deals. And so at the end of the day, just saying, hey, we'll protect supply management, that's a pretty wide swath of definition in terms of what that actually really is and how you define it. Personally, I have to say, no matter who wins, okay, on this week, April 28th for the election, no matter who wins, agriculture potentially is in pretty good hands. You got Cody Blois with the Liberals, who was the ag minister for about a week before the election was called, and you got John Barlow out of Foothills riding out of Alberta. John has a long history as being the shadow minister for agriculture for the Conservatives. So both very knowledgeable to file, more alike than different in terms of their positions. There's some work to be done. There's some work to be done here to make Canada competitive. There's some work to be done to have action around agriculture. We need investment in trade infrastructure. We need changes at PMRA. We got to be quicker. We can still have a high bar when it comes to the regulatory environment and making sure that we're keeping Canadians safe when it comes to the approval of products and technologies that can be used on the farm. But it has to happen at a much quicker load. It has to happen faster. We're not quick enough. In the global competitive world where exports are so important, being competitive is critical. One of the ways that Canada maintains its competitive edge against some countries in the export market is ensuring that we're able to get products, we're able to get commodities from the middle of a province like Saskatchewan, the middle of the prairies, to port as fast and as efficiently and as cost effectively as possible. And that's the challenge. That's going to be the challenge for both a Carney government or a Poilievre government. And agriculture really I would argue, well, agriculture tends to not get a lot of attention and a lot of public, whenever there's an election, we just wait for agriculture maybe to be mentioned. And when they mention food, we're like, there's a win for us. But I would say in this election, there's been more talk about agriculture issues like trade and infrastructure, interprovincial trade, export trade. There's been more talk about supply chains. Those are agricultural issues. And so that is a little bit refreshing for us to see this in this election that is taking part here in the first part of 2025. So remember, get out there and vote, and we'll see who the winner is when we get together again next week. Okay, what we're going to do here on RealAg on the weekend is we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to hear from Steve Larocque, farmer from Alberta. He's the chair of Nuffield Canada, and he thinks that maybe you out there in the RealAg on the weekend audience, you may be the best candidate to be a Nuffield scholar. All you got to do is apply. We'll be back right after this. If you're serious about agriculture, RealAg's got you covered.
For over 10 years, we've listened to and shared what producers have to say about everything from policy to agronomy from coast to coast.
Keep up with the latest in Canadian agriculture at RealAgriculture.com through daily newsletters and check out our YouTube channel.
Thanks for joining us in the RealAg community as we continue to cover and serve North American agriculture.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
Understanding the challenges you face, Nutrient Ag Solutions works with you to find the right solution every time. Nutrient Ag Solutions is one partner, all in. Visit nutrientagsolutions.ca to learn how their offerings work together to support your operation.
A great program that people across Alberta and Saskatchewan and all of Canada have been taking part in for quite some time is the Nuffield Scholarship Program. And Nuffield Canada does a great job. It's a great opportunity to really travel the world. And they've got a new intake window open. Application window is open. Now, is it a fit for you? Potentially, yes. I talked this week on the RealAg Radio podcast to Steve Larocque. He's the chair of Nuffield Canada. He's a farmer from Alberta. Let's listen in.
Nuffield Canada, we've been around just about 75 years. So what we do is send people around the world to explore new ideas, innovations, policies, practices, and bring them home back to Canada to implement in our own businesses, our own farms and communities, and broadly Canadian agriculture. So we provide $20,000 bursaries to farmers, like other researchers, people in agribusiness professionals, people across call it the ag ecosystem. And what we do is we provide the network, because there's just over 2,000 alumni. So we send them around the world to learn new things and bring them home. And it's really to bring back new perspectives, to bring back new ideas, because oftentimes we find ourselves siloed in Canada. So what we do is create a network, allow them to go explore the world, learn new things, and bring them home and report on it. So the application process is from April 1st and closes June 30th. So what you do is apply online, go to nuffield.ca, and you'll have an Apply Now button. So you click on it, you'll find out some more information about the process, which is just part of it's written, part of it's a video, and then eventually it's an interview. So once the application's closed, the end of June, there'll be like a top 10 list put together, and there'll be formal interviews in July, and then we award people in September. So
now, who is the ideal, like, there's people listening to this like, well, I'm just a farmer, or I work for a large corp. I don't know if this doesn't fit for me. Does it fit all those people? Like, what is the profile?
Yeah, it absolutely does. The profile is people between the ages of 25 and 50. In fact, we've had people up to 60. So really, we're selecting for people who are curious, who are open-minded, who are generous with their time, shown through either on boards or committees or ag societies, people who are genuinely curious. So if that is you and you're a farmer, or you own an agribusiness, or you're in industry, like you're supporting farmers or supporting the ag network, you're in food processing, you're in fishing, forestry, fiber, people who are genuinely curious and want to learn something new and hungry for information, this is just a rocket ship for connection and community and bringing a lot of open-minded people together, which just leads to great conversations and huge networking and so much information brought home. It's a life-changing experience. So the ideal person is, between that 25 and 50, and it's really about the character of the individual.
I like that curiosity. Now, do I have to choose an area of because this could be, you could be lost, like be a distracted person every day, kind of going a bunch of different directions here. So we choose a theme or I guess a niche of the industry, or how does that work?
That's right. So part of the application process is to choose a topic that you're curious about, that you're interested in. In fact, we're putting together an idea bank for those who are curious and intelligent and generous, but don't necessarily know what they quite want to investigate just yet. But it certainly needs to be a topic that's relevant to your business or your community or Canadian agriculture. So those are the topics we're looking for. And they could be everything from resurgence in Indigenous agriculture to ag ecotourism to looking at ecosystem services on a farm level and how to make those profitable, not just a good idea. So we've got many topics that range from, agritourism to even policy, looking at renewable energy and the impact of renewable energy and how that fits in our system. So
yeah, like I could just imagine somebody like in the cropping sector or cattle feeding sector being able to go see the way that other people do things and trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, and trying to bring that home and just not applying all of it, but being able to just apply a sliver of it to make improvements like that. I just think that's so cool.
Yeah, there's nothing better than peer-to-peer knowledge, right? So what we provide is, because you're selecting for curious people who are open-minded, we provide a network and a platform. So you go to the kitchen tables, you walk the fields with the problem solver. So it's like a farmer to farmer. We're walking through fields, you're at the kitchen table. And because we break down the barriers, because there's no competition. I'm not in competition necessarily with someone in WA or in Western Australia, but I'll happy to learn and they're happy to share, because that's part of being in Nuffield, is really opening up your business, whether it's the numbers, whether it's the people, the culture, whatever it is you're looking for. We break down those barriers so you get right to work. And there's an automatic friendship that comes along with it, because you're in many cases staying with the very farms that you're investigating. So you have all these case studies from all around the world that you go to investigate, you build friendships, you build new relationships, and all of a sudden your world is really small. So all of a sudden you're talking to people in Brazil, you're talking to people in Western Australia or Zimbabwe or anywhere in the UK or France, anywhere, Brazil, Chile. So you're talking with all these farmers and agribusiness professionals who are all curious, who are all driven, and they're all coming together, and you get that network. All of a sudden, that's your everyday. That's your every week.
Well, I know a lot of people have become Nuffield scholars and very much enjoyed their experience. You got me kidding, Steve. I'm starting to wonder if I should apply.
Do it.
Yeah.
100% do it. Absolutely.
Do the radio show from the road.
Oh.
How much fun would we have? That's the problem. It's too much fun.
This is only a 10-minute segment, is it? Yeah, absolutely. You definitely need to do one.
Now, one of the things that I think you've kind of undersold here,
yeah,
what my observation has been, is that when these Nuffield scholars, whether it's the people in Canada or some of the alumni from around the world, when they get a chance to run into each other in meetings going forward, like, this is a peer group you have for the rest of your life.
It is. It's lifelong. So it's a 2-year program, but that's just the beginning of it. Really, that's almost like a starting point. You take your 2-year journey, you write your paper, you investigate, you build relationships, and from that point on, I'm a 2008 scholar. So from that point on, when I finished in 2010, it was a rocket ship for a very long time. And when I say that, it's like this huge community that you're part of, and it never ends. In fact, there's some other people who just said yesterday they had people come in from New South Wales and they hadn't seen them in forever, like 10 years. And all of a sudden, you're connected. They've come to Canada, they've come to visit, and they're visiting some farms, they're visiting some Nuffield alumni. And, that's 12 years on since they've seen each other. So it's incredible. So applications open on April 1st. They close June 30th. Go to nuffield.ca and click apply now. All the details are right there. It's in plain English, so it should be easy enough to figure out and navigate the page. It's only 2 pages, and good luck.
That was Steve Larocque. He is chair of Nuffield Canada. Really, listen, if that has any interest to you, encourage you to check out the application. And what does it hurt? Take a flyer. I'm not sure how many people apply across the country, but you probably got just as good a shot as anybody. And honestly, I know lots of people that have been Nuffield scholars, and I don't know one that regretted it whatsoever. We're right back right after this. RealAg Radio is Canada's only daily radio show focused on agriculture. Get expert advice on Agronomic Monday. Tuesdays and Wednesdays will cover a broad range of issues. Thursday we'll hear from farmers across the country on the Farmer Rabbit Fire. And we'll wrap things up Fridays with the RealAg Issues panel with Kelvin Hepner and Lindsay Smith. Join us Monday through Friday at 4:30 Eastern. And don't forget about the replay at 7 in the morning on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Get all the information you need to keep your pulse crop healthy and profitable with the Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School is a free YouTube video series covering agronomy, research, and more across a host of different pulse crops. It's also available as an audio podcast wherever you download or stream your favorite podcasts. Check us out on YouTube or visit RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School, brought to you by BSF Canada. The following is a paid-for product spotlight by FCL. Now time for a product spotlight with FCL, and we are joined right now by Chris Iverson. He's the manager for private brand portfolio with Ag Solutions at FCL. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Very good. Thanks, Shaun. And you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Spring's inching a little bit closer, which I think everybody is pretty excited about. So today we're going to talk about the private brand products that FCL's been working on. Why make this investment? Why are you focused on this?
I think for us, the big thing is, we're a co-op. Our members are asking for it. And, that's probably the number one objective. But, I think we quite often see where a grower has to make or is choosing to make an agronomic sacrifice to chase economics. And I think that's really the big motivation behind, the 22 products that we've got today in our portfolio, from pre-seeds to in-crop, desiccants, surfactants, fungicides, all those products have been added to really overcome a challenge where someone had a real agronomic need and couldn't get it, inside of a program or something like that they were looking for. So, yeah, that's really why we're investing in it.
Is there any sacrifice? Like, is there a difference between the co-op private brand labeled products versus more the traditional private brands?
I think that's one of our key differentiators, and a big one for us is, where we source our products from. Agriculture is very important. I mean, in Western Canada, that's where we live, that's where we work. And, agriculture is the backbone of a lot of the communities that we're in. And I think when we are adding our products, we're really focused on, sourcing those products from people who are investing in the future of agriculture, looking at research and development, at the cost of $350 million to bring a new product to the market in 10 years, and no public funding there to do that. We feel it's important that as we're, adding products to our list, that we're supporting those who are going to take that money that we're giving them and reinvest it in new research and development. Because let's face it, we're losing actives way faster than we're gaining them today, between social pressures and resistance. The number of actives that are becoming not relevant anymore are far greater than the new ones that are getting introduced. So it's very important to us and to be supporting that in the industry.
Yeah, it's a very unfortunate reality indeed. Where do you see the future of the co-op private brand portfolio going?
I think, here again, because we're a co-op, it'll go where the members lead us, where they want us to be pursuing. But, I think there is a strong future for the private brand. And I think, as, we face, pressures from, around the globe on working together, we need to focus on, bringing these things home and building them right here in Western Canada, which, with our products, they're all packaged and a lot of them formulated at IPCO right in Winnipeg. And, taking that, that strong initiative, that unified initiative, and saying, hey, we want to invest in Western Canadian agriculture and where it's going in the future. So I think the future is bright for our private brand portfolio in basically filling those voids where a grower needs an active ingredient and is struggling to get it.
Yeah, in the market, this is a strategy that's often called white labeling.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the audience is probably asking the why of this from the standpoint, you've explained co-op's why.
Yeah.
From the standpoint of the manufacturer, why would they do this and put their product with your brand on it?
Yeah, and I think from a manufacturer's perspective, grower programs were designed to reward, to reward loyalty. And that's really their motivation. But in a lot of cases, manufacturers don't necessarily have every active ingredient that a grower needs on his farm. So there is those odd things here and there where they have to, if they're solidly in one manufacturer's program, but they need one active from another one, where they'll sometimes make the wrong decision, have to choose the economics over the agronomics, because I just can't, I can't max out another program, or I can't access that. So I think, a major manufacturer has an opportunity to present their active ingredient through our private brand to that grower to fill that void. And I think that's the real opportunity for those major manufacturers too in our private brand.
Now, Chris, if somebody wants more information on FCL's private brand portfolio, where do they go?
Yeah, and agro.crs is our website. So if you go on agro.crs, click the crop protection banner on the top, bring you to all of our products, and definitely keep an eye out there, because there's new ones getting added all the time.
Yeah, and of course, if you walk into one of your local outlets, right, make sure you ask that local representative for sure.
Yeah, those local co-ops, tremendous agronomic resource, and not only agronomic resource, an economic resource as well, to help you navigate. There's a lot of options out there today, so lean on that local co-op advisor to give you a hand to navigate some of that stuff if you need it.
Yeah, great point. Chris, thanks a lot for joining us here today for this product spotlight.
You bet. Thanks, Shaun.
Appreciate FCL joining us for that paid for product spotlight. Also this week on the RealAg Radio podcast, I chatted with a very good friend of mine, Jim Wiesmeyer. And Jim is one of the top ag policy analysts out of Washington, D.C. And of course, at RealAgriculture.com, we're very much focused on a lot of Canadian issues, but we can't ignore what is happening from a policy perspective in the U.S. because of how integrated our supply chains are and the amount of trade that the two countries do together. We got to be on top and paying attention to what is happening there as well, because it drives it drives economics back here in Canada. It could impact prices, could impact basis, it could impact demand. Right? And so we try to stay on top of it as much as we possibly can. And Jim and I were talking about, once we get past the Canadian election here this week, he kind of predicts there's going to be a better relationship between Canada and the U.S. And, I think a lot of Canadians still have in their memory banks all of the talk from President Trump about the 51st state, and how Canada needs to be the 51st state, and how it makes sense to him, and how they're subsidizing Canada, and all of that hoopla. And ever since the election was called, and Mark Carney became prime minister, and then the election was called, it's kind of been on pause. And you think about April 2nd, which was, as President Trump called it, Liberation Day, when they were applying all these so-called reciprocal tariffs. Canada was kind of left out of the prop wash, right? They kind of left out of the mix. And Jim expects, and you can find the interview on RealAgriculture.com. It's on our Real Agriculture YouTube channel as well. Jim kind of predicts that he thinks Canada and the U.S. and Mexico are going to kind of get on with, I guess, a more stable relationship than they had under Canada's leadership of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Jim believes that, Trump really didn't like Trudeau. I honestly, I'm not sure I totally buy into that, as I've said in many of my speeches throughout the winter. But hey, since Trudeau's been gone, it has been better. And Mark Carney, if he does become prime minister this week and he wins the election, he is kind of cut from the same cloth as Trump, the same kind of circles, that private equity, that kind of circle. So we're going to have to see what it looks like. Obviously, Pierre Poilievre, totally different. And that's really up for questions what that relationship would be like. But hey, we'll be right back here on RealAg on the Weekend right after this.
I'm Lindsay Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomists, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomists with me, Lindsay Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern.
The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is your one-stop shop for everything a canola grower needs. Check out our free video series on YouTube for all the latest in canola agronomy, research, marketing, and more. Don't have time to watch? Download the podcast version of the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com or anywhere you download your podcasts. Stay on top of all things canola with the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com, brought to you by BASF and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
Don't put your yield at risk. Put your trust in proven solutions. Anvil Nitrogen Stabilizer, Super U Premium Fertilizer, and Tribune Nitrogen Stabilizer from Koch Agronomic Services. These products offer higher active ingredient concentrations imitator brands can't match. See the difference at defendyourn.ca.
Okay, at Real Agriculture, we try to do a lot on farm succession. I think it's a major challenge for a lot of farm families across this country. Well, and in the U.S., and in the U.K., and in Australia. If there's a farm, there's challenges with farm transition. And on the Mind Your Farm Business podcast, which is sponsored by RBC Royal Bank, we explore a lot of business issues. And we do try to do a number of episodes through the year on farm transition planning. And one of my favorite people to chat with is Elaine Froese. She's a family farm transition specialist. She helps farm families across Canada and the United States. She is one of the most empathetic, compassionate people I know. She is great at this job. And we launched a new episode of the Mind Your Farm Business podcast this week. Elaine was my guest, and I'm going to play you a little clip. I'll give you a bit of a tease of it so you can go and find it wherever you get your podcast. Here's myself and Elaine Froese.
Honestly, I think a big part of the challenge here is the procrastination component. It's the getting started. There's on the farm. Listen, there, and this is an entrepreneur issue. So there's always trying parts of the calendar. But let's just use an ag example for a second here, where it's once seeding is done, once harvest is done, hey, once calving is over. Well, wait a minute here. We got everybody coming here for Thanksgiving. We just don't want to have this discussion around there. Oh, and then there's Christmas, and then you know what? We're back into January, February. It's almost seeding time. We got to focus on that after seeding is done, and then the cycle repeats itself. I think that's pretty common.
Yeah, and what you've just portrayed is exactly what I act out. Did that just this past week when I was with Maine dairy farmers in Ohio, Eastern Ohio, for the Women in Ag Conference. So procrastination and conflict avoidance continues to be killing agriculture or thwarting people's plans. You also use the phrase getting started. And I think that these day seminars that I've been doing with different ag groups, here's 3 words for your listeners to hang on to: income stream, housing, fairness. And so we have a coach, and our coach asked Wes, how much money do you want to make? He said $120,000 a year would be good. Where do you want to live? Well, wherever Elaine is. Good answer. Third question is, and how much do you want to work? I want to work when I want to work and not work when I don't want to work. And Ian can go and start the semi when it's minus 42. Now, the fairness issue in our family is a bit different because we have one successor who is our son and daughter-in-law, and we have a daughter who is a vulnerable person and cannot work full-time, and so we have a Henson Trust for her. So our succession plan is well underway. Why am I telling this story? Because people tend to think it's too complicated. So getting to the table to talk, Shaun, about what you want your life to look like on the farm, stepping back without stepping away, which is Dick Whitman's term, is really about mom and dad actually don't agree. So here's first part of procrastination. Unbeknownst to you, your father and mother are fighting because mom's tired of being at Grand Central Station and she's ready to move to town or go somewhere else and be off the main yard. Oh no. But dad, he's happy. He just wants to die with his boots on where he is. And so if your parents are not agreed, you're not going anywhere. And conflict resolution happens when needs are not aligned. And so how do you find out what people are needing, thinking, feeling, and wanting? First step, and this happened to a woman from Iowa. Her name's Melissa. She said, Elaine, my dad's 70, but we're just not getting a plan done. And I'm in another state, but I want to move closer and I want to be farming with my dad. And my mom wants to move to town. So here's what Melissa did. She actually wrote a letter, Shaun, to her parents and said, by a week from now, once you've read this letter, here's my dream. Here's my vision. This is how I would like to farm with you. And my husband and kids are willing to come with me. Can we get this started? And that was the tipping point. You know, the book by Malcolm Gladwell, Tipping Point?
Yeah.
So we all have to have tipping points in our life. And this is a happy tipping point because she was very clear about what she wanted and needed and by when. And when her father realized that she'd already started looking at houses for the mom, then things kind of got into this momentum. And so what are people afraid of? Why are we having conflict avoidance? Because people are afraid of conflict. But I do conflict for a living, and I just want people to understand who are listening to this. Brene Brown, famous podcaster, says, being clear is kind. So can you be clear in telling your parents what you want? And can you wait to hear back from your parents in a family meeting about what they want? And then can just start taking the steps to solutions. But the first step after you've put yourself out there is, where's the money going to come from? And this podcast is sponsored by the Royal Bank. So here we go. Your farm is now worth north of 30 million because of the land and all this stuff. But if you go into your Royal Bank tax-free savings account and your RSPs and all the savings and different stuff, you're humiliated to tell me that you have less than $50,000 on your personal wealth side? What was that about? Well, that was because, Elaine, we like the farm. We know the farm. We just keep putting everything back in the farm. And so all you need to do is draw a cross on a piece of paper, put all your farm assets on the left-hand side, and put your other assets, your personal ones, on the right-hand side. And therein lies a key issue.
Yeah.
We are embarrassed to tell you, Shaun, we'd love you to come back, honey, but mom and dad just don't have anything to give you unless you buy us out or buy something. So, Shaun, what are you planning on buying?
Well, it's hard to buy land.
Yep. So that's kind of off the table now, isn't it? And that's heartbreaking because people love land, but they need access to land for the farm. But young people, young farmers cannot technically usually buy very much land. So then what's next? Equipment?
But if I don't, yeah, but then like that's so I'm putting money in a depreciating asset. That's a problem.
Yeah. And does someone in your family have an off-farm job? Because the off-farm job's going to leverage family living. Oh, what's that about? Well, family living is about 80 grand, 84 grand. And I was just in the States this week. And the man from the farm management group, it's called Farm Office, lovely name, Farm Office, in Ohio State. He said, Elaine, we're now using $90,000 as family living in Ohio. So anybody listening to this, say, oh, no, we can live on $30,000. No, that's not true. You actually haven't checked the numbers lately. So you have young families who need to live and buy groceries and diapers. You have older families who want to step back without stepping away. And what's the common denominator here? Money. So here's my new encouragement to the listeners. The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. It's our new favorite book on our coaching team. 3 of us are reading it. But it's interesting when you look at the difference between being wealthy and being rich. And many farmers are actually wealthy already, Shaun, because they have freedom with their time, but they might not necessarily consider themselves rich because you always hear farmers say, I'm asset rich and cash
poor.
Yeah. And they're cash poor because they haven't paid attention to the right-hand side of that ledger, which is their personal wealth. So then get thee to a financial planner, because if you're listening to this at 60, it's a lot different of how much time you have on your side for compounding and different investing and saving and whatnot, or tax-free savings account. That's the other thing. I'm still meeting farmers who don't even know tax-free savings accounts exist because they've never used them.
That's just a snippet, just a slice, a bit of a tease of my conversation with Elaine Froese on a recent episode of Mind Your Farm Business Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Encourage you to check that out. Very, very critical, important topic. If you have any feedback on today's show, send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. It has been great to be with you here today. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll chat again next week. Cheers, everybody.